that part. All right, good morning, folks. Happy Saturday. We're gonna get started here in just a second, and so we're gonna basically let people in as they come on in. I'm gonna grab a cup of coffee. If you don't mind, I'm gonna grab a cup of coffee. You do so the same, because I want to know what you put into your coffee this morning. If you drink coffee, if you don't drink coffee, if you drink tea, or just drink some water. Let's put something in it so we can kind of get started this morning. And I want to know, so open up your chat box. I want to know what you're putting in it. Let me go ahead and open up this thing and hit a little
In progress.
disconnect audio. All right. So trying to be fancy here, right? So I got this little slide. It says the science, you can kind of read it in between, the science of weight regain following bariatric surgery. So this is going to be a little different talk rather than our routine Saturday webinar talks that we get. I gave a talk to our Georgia State Medical Association yesterday to a bunch of doctors who are, who basically asked me to talk about weight loss surgery, weight regain, and all that. And I did. And I basically want to just take this time to show you all what I talked to them about. Because the core theme was that we got to do better. Because we're having an epidemic of weight regain following GLP-1 drugs, following just weight loss medications, and following weight loss surgery. So a lot of people are having these things, paying a lot of money for it, going through a lot of changes for it, but they're still regaining the weight. All right. So we want to avoid that. And the way we avoid that is that we teach you what we need to teach you. So I can't teach you before surgery from 2, 3, 4 weeks or 2, 3, 4 office visits to surgery, everything that you need to know about the weight loss thing. Because it's sort of like going from the kindergarten grade to the 12th grade in a few sessions. It doesn't happen that way. And that's the purpose behind these sessions, is primarily to take you step by step from kindergarten to first grade to second grade to third grade to whatever, until you get to the 12th grade, until you graduate. And that takes time, because there's absolutely no way. And it's been shown with this high incidence, a relatively high incidence of weight regain following all our weight loss strategies, from calories in versus calories out, from GLP-1 drugs and people regaining the weight, from bariatric surgery and people regaining the weight. Now, obviously, the most durable of all those procedures is the surgery. But it's primarily because when you come back to the office after I operate on you, or my partners operated on you, and you come back to the office for the first 3 months, we control what you eat, because you're doing that healing process and we control what you eat. And what you're going to see through this presentation is how vitally important that first 3 months are. That first 3 months, you kind of doing what you're told to do. The problem comes after that. When you say, okay, I got this, I'm good, don't need any more Saturday morning webinars, don't need any more offices anymore, I got this. That's where we go down the rabbit hole. And that's when we say, okay, fine, I'm losing the weight, I'm looking good, I'm 3 dress sizes down. Maybe I can try a little bit of this pizza now. Maybe I can try a little bit of this donut now. Maybe I can try a little bit of this birthday cake now. And therefore, you go down the rabbit hole. All right. So anyway, that's what we're going to discuss. And I'm going to get you out of this slide right here and just kind of show you how I presented yesterday. So we first got to tell everybody we have no disclosures. I have no financial interest in any of the things that I'm going to tell you. All right. All right. So let me pause here for a second, because what I wanted to do is just go ahead and have you go get your cup of coffee. I have mine right here. I was going to warm it up, but I'm okay with it. So open up your chat box. I'm going to open up my chat box here. And about to have a black cup with monk fruit with allulose sweets. Very good. So somebody's been here before. Imagine that. So I hope that not only are you here today, which you'll continue to come back, this is free. Free information, because the theme that I talked about yesterday, we don't know what we don't know. And that includes us as physicians. So if we don't know, then how are we going to pass it on to you guys? So we got to know it first, and then you got to know it, because then if it has that trickle down effect that you guys don't know what you don't know, and that keeps us in the problem of chasing that fat loss goal. We keep chasing and chasing and chasing. We never catch up because we haven't learned the secrets of how to keep it off. Today, I'm going to give you those secrets. So get your pencil and paper and get your fingers are moving to ask me questions. All right. I had some sugar-free vanilla flavor, no cream. Okay. Cream macchiato creamer, sugar. Uh-oh. And a dab of French vanilla. Uh-oh. That's it. That's all. Laugh out loud. Okay. I'm about to. All right. Not a coffee drinker. Good morning. Not a coffee drink. Great. I'm glad you guys are participating. Let's keep that up. All right. So let's kind of get into it. And it's gonna seem highly technical, but I'm gonna break it down to you. So this is what I talked to a bunch of trained medical doctors, and they knew all the stuff that I was talking about. But let's get started how we always get started. Let's kind of go back to the way it used to be. What you see in front of you is a list of it used to be a list of 10 items. I expanded it to 20 items. Now that are the things that we want to get rid of. Now I'm going to go through the progress of telling you, what to get rid of. And then later on, you're going to find out what it is that I want you to add, all right, to your diet, to your everyday diet, right? Because if you look at this list, this is everything that you probably take in on a day-to-day basis, right? And so people ask me and say, Doc, that's everything in my cabinet. That's everything in my refrigerator. What am I supposed to eat? I want to tell you. All right. So look at this list and put in the chat box, which of these things are your weakest link? Which of these things are your kryptonite? Which of these things do you just have to have on a day-to-day basis or on a week-to-week basis, or you at least got to have it every other week or every month? What are these things in your mind that you perceive that you just can't do without? Put it in the chat box for me, okay? Give you a few seconds to do that. So we got bread. Let me put my glasses on so I can read. We got bread. Notice for those who've been here, I take out white bread because it's all bread. All of it is made with refined flour. All right. So not all, but most of the ones that we get at the grocery store. Okay. Soda, high in sugar, major refined carb source. One of my good friends who may be on it today, his kryptonite was definitely soda. Would have to have a Coca-Cola or some sort of Dr. Pepper or something every single day, several times a day. White rice, sugary breakfast cereals. Number 5, my nemesis in the past was cakes, donuts, and muffins. Cheesecake, apple pie. Couldn't go without it. I mean, because on a Saturday, I had a hard week and I deserved it. I deserved that that little bit of sweetness, okay? A lot of sweetness. Number 6, fast food buns, tortillas, refined flour bases. That's a Taco Bell, all right? 7 is pizza. 8, processed snacks, chips, pretzels, and crackers. As I may have talked about it last week, one of my star patients came back at a particular weight. She started at a weight of 150 pounds over her ideal body weight, had lost almost all that 150 pounds. Actually, she started at 200 pounds over her ideal body weight. She lost 150 pounds, was on her way to her ideal body weight, that whole 200 pounds off, right? She came in to do a little interview. And during the interview, I kind of noticed when she walked in, that something was strange about it. Something was different. The difference was that she had gained 25 pounds. So she basically had lost 150 pounds, needed another 50 pounds to get to her ideal body weight, which would make her insulin sensitive and the whole 9 yards of success. She gained 25 pounds, a net loss of 75 pounds. She was going backwards. In other words, she didn't get to her ideal body weight just yet, and she started doing something that actually caused it to reverse. What did she do? That's what we're going to discuss. You kind of know the answer already, but we're going to discuss it in detail. All right. Number 11, white pasta, macaroni, spaghetti, all the white pasta you can think of. Those are things that you need to take out of your diet. These are things we're going to get rid of. But we're not just going to say stop doing it. We're gonna put some science behind it and show you how to do it. And what you don't know. These strategies, these techniques you don't know. So how can you really keep them off? And that's what her problem was. It's because she didn't know. She's probably not on here today either. So we got to correct that problem. And so we need to know these things, because after 3 months of taking these things off, there's a science behind 3 month period of time. 3 to 4 months after we tell you what to eat, and you're eating the main foods that we're telling you to eat, the whole foods consisting of protein, fiber, and healthy fats. Remember that. Everybody say that with me. Protein, fiber, and healthy fats. Protein, fiber, and healthy fats. Say that with me. If we get that concentration in our mind, then once we take those in, and there's science behind each one of those items that does biological things in your body. The proteins give you the enzymes to make everything occur. The fiber is crucial, because everything that occurs that makes GLP-1, our own internal GLP-1, is mediated by fiber. It's mediated by fiber primarily because the fiber is the food for the microbiome that makes the GLP-1. Wow. Didn't know that, did you? That GLP-1 just doesn't happen magically in your small bowel. That GLP-1 actually is generated by these little bacteria. We used to think the bad bacteria, we used to wash our hands all the time, and we still do. Get all the bad bacteria off. But those are the bad bacteria that are nasty to us, that cause disease. There are great bacteria that help us survive and flourish in our colon. Those are the ones we're going to kind of talk about. We're going to try to keep it layman's terms, but not get too technical about it. Okay. All right. Number 13, breakfast bars and granola bars. My mother used to love those things. Instant oatmeal packets, man. Number 15 is ice cream and frozen desserts. Along with my apple pie, I had to warm it up, and I had to have some ice cream with it. Double, triple whammy. 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. You can see. All righty. All righty. Krispy Kreme donuts. Very good. I love me some good soft bread. Yep. Add a little heat to that, a little warm to it. Nothing better, right? All right. I'm going to show you what these things are doing to you. Bread and cake, sweet candies, and rice and things of that nature. Okay, so we got that in mind. All right, let's go through the rest of the talk here. What happens following bariatric surgery? So when you have surgery, and this is what I'm teaching the other docs, they just basically thought, okay, fine, yeah, we're doing something pretty radical. And surgery is indeed radical. If you just want to lose some weight, why would you want to go have surgery? Because surgery provides some very, very technologically advanced stuff that even sometimes they don't even know. All right. So what does it provide? The surgery has to do two things. Number one, the calories in versus the calories out. You'll hear me sometimes poo-pooing that idea. I don't poo-poo that idea. I poo-poo those folks who just believe that it's only about calories in versus calories out. It is not. Because when you have calories in versus calories out, if you need 2,000 calories a day to function in order for your body to survive, and you have an extra amount of fat and you're trying to tap into as your energy source, and you go on a very low calorie diet, like 500 calories a day, 500 calories a day, you need 2,000 calories to survive. You have a 1,500 calorie deficit. Where are you going to get those calories from? Because your body needs it every day. It doesn't function without it. You're going to tap into your fat stores. Beautiful idea, right? But what happens when you only eat 500 calories a day, but your body needs 2,000? You tap into your fat stores. Your stomach says, I'm not satisfied. You only gave me 1/5 of what I need. I need the rest of my food. So your body gets hungry again. So your body says, okay, fine. Yeah. You go ahead and get the fat stores all you want to, but I'm not satisfied. So the point being, you need a second backup system. And our second backup system that we have is hormonal related. So the second backup system is indeed activation of this particular hormone that we love, GLP-1. They're now making it in the stores, and we're buying it for $1,000 a month. We as surgeons thought of that first. We thought of that back in the 1990s. The first GLP-1 drug didn't come out to the early 2000, 2004, I believe. They came into our operating room and said, what are y'all doing? We said, oh, we're making people lose weight. How are you doing it? Well, you know that these great cells in the bowel that we're exposing the food nutrients to, and it's activating. And they said, what is that great nutrient you talk about? What is that great thing you talk about? It's called an incretin. It's part of the neuroendocrine system, and it's an incretin. What is it called? It's called GLP-1. And so they went back, they scratched their head, they went out to the laboratory, they started making it 10 years later. All right, I digress. What does GLP-1 do? So we already made the small pouch. I made it into a little small banana like the sleeve gastrectomy, or I made it into a little small golf ball size stomach like the gastric bypass. So I've given you the calorie deficit. This is the calorie deficit. But I got to pair that with something else. Otherwise, you're going to get hungry. Otherwise, you're going to eat again. Otherwise, you're not going to get satisfied. So I got to pair that with GLP-1. What does GLP-1 do? Well, GLP-1 increases GLP secretion, increases satiety, makes you get full on lesser amounts of food. Beautiful. So I just ate 500 calories. Well, I'm full now. Great. Satisfies what we need in order to make sure this lasts. Number two, it actually increases your total daily energy expenditure, your BMR, a little bit. It increases your BMR. So what does that mean? It means that it increases your basal metabolic needs, all right? So your metabolism, in other words, increases. So your metabolism increases, but you have less fuel that you give in your body. So what has to happen? You got to go get more fuel from your fat. Exactly what we wanted. Exactly what we wanted. Number three is probably in my mind the most important, because why do I eat cheesecake, ice cream? I have cravings. But the beautiful part about elevation of GLP-1 naturally in your body is it disrupts the pleasure pathway, the pleasure pathway of food, dopamine response, pleasure. Because we just don't eat that cheesecake or that apple pie because it tastes good and sweet. It's associated with a tremendous amount of dopamine release from our nucleus accumbens in our brain and our ventral tegmental area, VTA area in our brain, that are the areas that are responsible for pleasure, that are areas responsible for dopamine release. So when we eat these foods, whether they're cereals, crackers, cookies, pasta, we get a dopamine surge. GLP-1 takes that away. And that's why, and GLP-1 is not specific for foods. So I'm going to digress here for a second, because the GLP-1s block the receptors in our pleasure zone of our brain. So anything that gives us pleasure is blocked. So that includes smoking. That's a good thing. It blocks the pleasure of smoking. So they're starting to use it for smokers who are obese, which is a good thing. They stop smoking. Great thing. It blocks the pleasure of alcohol. Another great thing, because alcoholism is a problem in this country, and people who are obese, they're getting a double whammy. So blocking the pleasure from consuming alcohol is needed. But what are the things that we really don't need the GLP-1 to block? We don't need to block our pleasure from sex, but that's what's happening. We don't need to block our pleasures from day-to-day activity, but that's what's happening. People are not excited about going to work or excited about something that they're usually excited about. But the most important thing to me that GLP-1 blocks that I don't like, and that's why I don't use these drugs, because they give you a super physiologic dose of GLP-1, not your normal surge of GLP-1, but a super physiologic dose, 450 times what your body normally makes. When you get to that dose, you block one very important thing, your desire, your pleasure that you get out of exercise. Because if we exercise, if I do zone 2 training in the morning and do some resistance training, I feel good afterwards. You should too. If your GLP-1 levels are so high, we're going to block that pleasure. That's a bad thing, because the exercise is a vital component of this whole scenario. Okay, so keep that in mind. Let's continue. All right. So, three things that GLP-1 does. All right, it increases our level of fullness on smaller amounts. Beautiful thing. It increases our metabolism. Beautiful amount. We got to go get that energy from the fat. All right. Then we basically decrease our pleasure zones from eating. And it takes away your desire to eat candy, cookies, and things of that nature. And you'll find that after the surgery, especially when you follow the diet for the first 3 months. You'll find that at 3 months that all of a sudden you just don't have that desire. Somebody has a birthday cake. Yeah, I'll pass on that. Somebody offer you some candy. Yeah, I'll pass on that. Why does that happen? I'm going to show you why. Because this is biological things going on in the background. So gastric bypasses, and this, I'll quickly go over this because this is something technical that you guys don't know about. But what we do is, this is the reason why gastric bypass. We said, okay, fine. This was developed back in 1967 by Dr. Ed Mason out of the University of Iowa. He came up with the idea primarily because back in those days, we used to treat ulcer surgery. We didn't have proton pump inhibitors or things like omeprazole or the class of drugs that are now curative for ulcer disease. Back in good old days in the 1960s, we had to cut ulcers out. If you had a bad ulcer, we didn't have the drugs, you had to cut it out. Thank goodness we've come a long way from that. People are hoping the same thing will happen with obesity, but I don't think so. So he cut the stomach out, made it a small stomach, cut the ulcer out, made it had a small stomach, and then he had to hook that stomach back up to the bowel. But he noticed one thing. He says, he noticed that some of his obese people that came in with ulcer disease, after he cured their ulcer by cutting it out, he noticed something strange. They started losing weight. He started thinking about this. What's going on here? So then he developed the idea, well, maybe I can use this strategy on patients who have obesity problems. And voila, he came onto something. So he thought that he would make a small pouch, because that's what he did in ulcer surgery, make a small pouch, and then hook it up to a portion of bowel to get malabsorption, because he thought that the principal reason that they were losing weight was that they were eating small amounts and they were not absorbing the food nutrients. All right. I was wrong, but it was a good start. And so he started that in the 1960s. It wasn't until the 1990s that we figured out there was something different going on. It wasn't until the 1990s that we figured out that we saw that, okay, this is the 1990s, 30 years later, we said, huh, it was strange because as we were doing more and more of this bypass surgery over 30 years, we found out that people who had type 2 diabetes, we were putting their diabetes into remission. Okay, so everybody says, okay, that's not a big deal. That the type 2 diabetes is caused from excess weight. You get rid of the excess weight, you should get rid of the diabetes. Yeah, but the strange thing about it was that the diabetes was going away before they lost the weight. So if the weight was the problem as far as diabetes is concerned, why were they losing diabetes before they lost the weight? Well, they said, okay, fine. They explored it. And in the 1990s is when we found about these incretins, these K cells in the duodenum. This is our duodenum, and the L cells in the small bowel. The L cells in the small bowel and in the colon are the magic GLP-1 producers. And as you go further and further down the small bowel, the concentration of these L cells that produce that GLP-1 increases, the density increases. So the further you go down the small bowel, the more your GLP-1 will release. So the whole point is, how can we get food to that part of the small bowel where you have most of the GLP-1 cells, most of the L cells? By accident, that's what bariatric surgery did. Because bariatric surgery, we cut the small bowel here and we brought the high concentration of L cells up to the stomach that we had cut off. Not to the one we cut off, but the stomach that we left behind. That was a smaller pouch. So we were accomplishing decreasing caloric intake and stimulation of the L cells all in one operation. Perfect operation. Okay. And basically, that's where we stand today. So anything that allows us to put decrease the amount of food, decrease the calorie intake, and then stimulate GLP-1 is perfect. All right. And you got to feed these cells the right type of food. Protein, fiber, and healthy fats. Protein, fiber, and healthy fats. You have already repeated it for me, so I know you know it. All right. So let me go ahead and get to the point. So can we do the same thing? So this is the effects of GLP-1: increase satiety, metabolic boost, and decrease cravings. Perfect. We can do the same thing with the sleeve. Before I make that stomach into the size of a banana, it originated from the size of a 2-liter Coke bottle. As large size. Sometimes more commonly the size of a 1.5-liter Coke bottle. Okay. But now I take that 1.5 liters and I make it into the size of a small banana. So normally when your stomach is about the size of a 1.5 liter Coke bottle, the food goes into your stomach and it digests, it rolls around, and it stays in that stomach for 6 to 8 hours. All right. So it doesn't get very far down the small bowel to stimulate the L cells. But when I cut that size down by 80%, 90%, food doesn't stay in this pouch very long. It gets down and it stimulates those L cells like it's supposed to do. So the sleeve does stimulate the L cells, not as intensely as the gastric bypass, but it does. And indeed, the most powerful stimulant of the L cell is a duodenal switch. Now, we don't do the duodenal switch primarily because, yeah, it does have a component of malabsorption, and that component of malabsorption is much, much more than with the gastric bypass. And so people do a lot of nutrients, they lose a lot of protein, which takes us back to explain that. All right, somebody has their microphone on. If you could check your little microphone on your Zoom thing at the bottom and just click mute, I'd appreciate that. Okay, let's see if I can. I don't know if I can do it from this slide or not, but okay, I still hear that background. Let's see if I can do that. Can I mute anybody? Let's see if I can mute these folks. I can't. Let's see, mute. Maybe I can. All I'm seeing is the chat box here. So again, I can't do it from the slide. If I disrupt the slides, that'll be a problem. Anyway, all right. So anyway, I digress. So the sleeve gets down to the L cells accurately. So the duodenal switch is too much because it does cause malabsorption, even though it's the most powerful stimulant of GLP-1. You get your highest levels of GLP-1 after the duodenal switch, but at a price. All right. So next is basically this is the duodenal switch. But for that same reason, this is why the lap band doesn't work. And this is why people want the lap band, but it's kind of gone out of favor. Now, some people have had success with it. Don't get me wrong. Some people have had a lot of success with the lap band, but because it only restricts the amount of food that you take in, when we tighten that band by this little port here that's connected under your subcutaneous area, and we put liquid in it, it puts a tightening on the band. So it's like tightening your buckle. So you quickly get full on a small amount. So you have a boiled egg, you're full. But 30 minutes later, when that boiled egg goes through, you're hungry again. So the lap band kept people hungry throughout the day. And so they would eat throughout the day. And obviously, your insulin level will go up and you get this whole vicious cycle that goes on from there. So the lap band wasn't giving us the weight loss that we expected because it had no GLP-1 component. And as a matter of fact, the small amount of food here that once they got into here, it didn't even stimulate the ghrelin hormone, the I'm hungry hormone, because once you get a full stomach and the food starts to bathe this area, which is called the cardia of the stomach, that's where ghrelin lives. All right. GLP-1 lives in the small bowel and in the colon. Ghrelin lives in this top part of the stomach. Once food hits that, it says, okay, I'm full. But you can see how the stomach is shaped. We don't necessarily want ghrelin to be much of our friend. So with the sleeve, we take that out. So it's not a factor. But if we can look at the stomach, food comes down here and it sits down here first, the most dependent portion. Then as we eat more and 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 more, it finally gets up to the ghrelin and you're full at that point and your stomach is fully stretched. It's stretched to a whole liter and a half. So We didn't like the effects of ghrelin, so we took it out with the sleep. With the gastric bypass, we exclude that part of the stomach that has ghrelin. So now you don't have to have a full stomach in order to say, I'm full. Okay. So that's the other thing. All right. So the lab ban fails because it only restricts food volume. There's no GLP-1 activation. The satiety fades, hunger returns, and you get frequent eating and weight regain. Plus, the kind of straw that broke the camel's back is we were starting to get complications from the ban. The ban is a foreign object around a viable piece of stomach, and it would cause erosions. It would cause slips. It would cause problems with nausea and vomiting, and we had our share of having to take them out. So the ASMBS got together and says, is this something that we need to continue to do in the face of it not causing the weight loss that we need and in the face of the complications? And we all decided unanimously we would still offer it if people just had to have it, if they felt that they could indeed get by with just eating smaller amounts, then we could try it. But in general, we stopped offering it. All right. All right. Oh, that's just the part of the stomach that I took out. So how does bariatric surgery work? We just discussed that, okay? And we know that the GLP-1 levels that have increased after the bypass and the sleeve are 4 to 5 times what you would have before the surgery, all right? And we were able to prove that with these several studies. These studies showed that in the normal insulin-sensitive individuals, the Michael Georges, the Simone Biles, all the folks out there who are normal, who are saying, hey, you do what I do, you can get what I get. You can get these muscles, you can do what I do. No, we can't. We can't. Stop it. But they took the levels of people like that, of what GLP-1 levels and what we're going to be striving for. They took those levels of normal people. Those levels fasting without any meals, because obviously GLP-1 responds to when you eat a meal, but you also have a certain level that's just kind of sitting around waiting for that meal. That's called the fasting level. That's the level that you get when you hadn't eaten a meal in a while. That normal level is between 5 to 15 picomoles per liter. Don't remember the picomoles per liter is unimportant, but 5 to 15. After these folks eat, after these normal insulin sensitive folks eat, it goes up to 20 to 60. Normal response, okay? They then, in this particular study, they studied, okay, fine, what about bariatric patients? Do they have GLP-1? Why is it not working? Why are these folks getting this excess storage of fat? Well, they found out it's because of the GLP-1. Some kind of way it got turned off. All right, so in the pre-op bariatric patients, they proved that the fasting levels were undetectable in some people and 3 picomoles per liter at best. Now remember, 5 to 15 is normal, undetectable. So they didn't find it, the 3. And then after they would eat, they got just a little bit, approximately 2 to 5 picomoles per liter as compared to 20 to 60. A fraction of what we're supposed to have, a fraction of. Then we figured out, okay, fine. Once we did the surgery, 3 months later, they said, okay, fine. What did happen to GLP-1 at this particular point in time? Guess what happened? You can pretty much guess, right? Because I'm excited about it. The fasting levels went up to 10 to 15 as opposed to 2 to 5. Beautiful. The postprandial levels went up to 15 to 60 plus, oftentimes 80 plus, even better than the insulin sensitive people, even better than normal, right? 3 to 10 times higher than pre-op levels. And that was beautiful. So we figured out that we can basically make GLP-1 our ally again. And so the big pharmacies took that idea and they made it to where not only is it 80 times higher, but it's 400 times higher. And that's where the problem begins, because you have this particular particle called DPP4, dipeptidopeptidase 4. It's a protein enzyme that only allows GLP-1 to get up to these levels for a minute or two. But that's all we needed. That's normal. It gets up to a minute or two to 20 to 60 in normal folks. But when they made the drugs, they made it to where it was not 60 picomoles per liter, but it was 6,000 picomoles per liter. So it was multiple times more potent than we needed it to be. And it lasted longer because they took the mechanism that it would be quickly broken down and taken out of the system. I hope I'm not getting too technical here. But the bottom line is that you're getting exposed when you're taking the drugs to a high dose for a longer period of time. Now, how safe is that? We don't know yet. We've had 4 or 5 years of trial. We don't know what the long-term results are. But when we do super physiologic doses of anything else, bad things happen, right? When I give you 100% oxygen in the hospital because you have COVID, I need to force 100% oxygen because your lungs are damaged. I can do that for a couple of days. But after 2 days, that 100% oxygen, which is normally good because we normally take in 21% oxygen when we breathe in room air, 21% oxygen. I can give you 100% oxygen only for a period of time, only a couple of days. Then that 100% oxygen starts to destroy your lungs. I can give you 2 liters, 3 liters of water every single day, depending upon what you do, and that's good for your body. But if I gave you 10 liters of water every single day, water's good, right? But not in that dose. If I gave you 10 liters of water a day, I basically would be drowning your body. You'd go into hyponatremia and you'd have seizures and you'd die. Too much of a good thing is too much. When we have deficiencies in our body, and big pharma went to the drawing board and says, okay, they got deficiency of GLP-1. Rather than doing what all the other drugs do, let me give you an example. When you're diabetic, type 1 diabetic, and you lack insulin, do the big pharmacies go out there and say, we're going to make insulin to where we're going to overshoot it. We're going to give them higher doses of insulin than they would normally need. Does that work? No, because you put them into hypoglycemia and shock and they die. When you have people who have hypothyroidism, the big pharma say, we're going to basically make that thyroid hormone that we replace super physiologic. No, because they get jittery and they have atrial fibrillation and they die. We don't give super doses of anything else when we're trying to control something. Diabetes, hypertension, blood pressure medicine, we don't overdo that. We don't give super physiologic dose of cortisol if we have adrenal failure. We don't give super physiologic dose of insulin when we have type 1 diabetes and we're not making insulin. We try to give what's normally missing in the body. We try to match what the body's supposed to try to make. Nowhere have we done this before where we're giving 400 times the dose of GLP-1 that our body normally makes. I'm interested to see how that's going to turn out. I don't think it's going to be good, but I digress. All right. That was my speech on my GLP-1. All right. So anyway, so what happened to my patients? Why did they regain the weight? All right. So they lost a follow. The ones that say, I got this, doc. I've been to your webinars. I'm cool now. I know everything that you know. I got this. And a large percentage of those patients, once we got in touch with them, because we make efforts to get in touch with everybody to come back to see how you're doing and to make sure that you know what I know. And so when we finally got in touch with those folks, we found our numbers to be around about 38, 39%. They were regaining their weight. All right. So again, this is what I tell the doctors. Okay. One of the reasons I say protein, fiber, and healthy fats, one of the reasons I'm telling you, put it in the chat box right now. What I'm getting ready to tell you that you should take in fiber and why fiber is so important. Fiber is important for a transport molecule, and it's also a food group. It's a food group and it's a transport molecule. Both very, very, very active in the weight loss process. All right. So with that in mind, I'm going to tell you how important fiber is. Tell me how much you took in the other day. Tell me how much you took in yesterday. How many grams of fiber did you take in? And if you don't know because you knew that you took over the amount that you're supposed to take, then fantastic. Tell me, I don't need to count it because I know that I took in the right amount. All right, put it in, let's see, put it in the chat box. Okay. Somebody says, I noticed significant gains after about 9 years post-surgery. Yep. So that's what we're leading to. I'm going to show you why. For the most part, I'm going to show you why 99.9% of people regain the weight. All right. So it said, hi, y'all. Will you please soon copy the Zoom call? Yeah. I think George is on, my marketing person is on the line. I think she's recording this also. And I think that it will have it available. So I'm going to break it up and I'm going to make several YouTube videos out of it as well. All right. 25 to 40. Have you ever been here before? Yes, you have. I'm not sure. Does anybody know? Is 25 to 40 sound right? Not sure. I'm not sure. Right. Right. Okay. So if you're interested in fat loss, that 25 to 40 is exactly right. 25 grams for women, 40 grams for men. So if you don't know what you took in yesterday, you probably didn't reach that mark. Today I had 2 cups of coffee. I have a little thing called what is it called? 3-in-1. It has 3 types of fiber in one. It's a powder. It's little small, teeny spoonfuls of it. And I put 2. There's 7 grams for these little teaspoons. So I put 2 in my cup of coffee. All right. So I had 14 grams of the first cup of coffee. This is the second cup of coffee. That's another 14 grams. I've had 28 grams, and I hadn't been through my first couple of 3 hours of waking up. So I've reached the level that women are supposed to get. Now I got another several grams to go, but it'll be easy for me to reach that. Some asparagus, some salads, some avocados, some other things. And then at the end of the day, if I don't reach it, I'll know that I didn't reach it, and I'll go ahead and reach it. What are you doing the same thing? Because you need to, because the fiber is so vitally important to your weight you lost, your fat loss. To this, it's just undescribable almost. All right. So a lot of people just don't know what they don't know. If you don't know that you should be taking in 40 grams of fiber a day or 25 grams of fiber, which is easy to get just in your cup of coffee, easy to get. But if you don't know that, you don't put the fiber in anything and you won't get it. This fiber is acacia, inulin, psyllium husk. Most people, when I tell them when they come back in the office for the limited amount of time that I'm able to talk to them, they think that, yeah, doc, no, I don't need fiber. My bowels are moving just fine. Wow. Where did that come from? Well, I know that my grandmama and all that told me that you got to eat fiber in order to get your bowel movements normal, and if you're constipated. But over the generations, we've all just pushed the need for fiber into that one scenario. If you have bad bowel movements, if you have problems moving your bowel, take some fiber. Otherwise, you don't need fiber. Man, that is so wrong. Man, that is so wrong. And all this time that we've been following that advice, all this time we have been starving the microbiome, which is responsible for the 7 to 8 bacteria that are responsible for making GLP-1. Our GLP-1 levels are extremely low because we thought that fiber was just for constipation. So again, the whole thing, you don't know what you don't know. And this is why you're here, to learn what you don't know so that you won't continue to make that mistake the rest of your life. Because all this stuff all these things are not in an isolated state. They all compound to make a healthy lifestyle so you can live longer. I can show you how to be 120. If you start at an earlier stage than I started at, which is around about 8 years ago, my goal was to always make it to 100. I still think I'm going to make it there, but to make it 120 is a possibility and a quality of life associated with 120 as well. If you start in your 30s or 40s, you will definitely make it to 120 if you follow these things. Because just taking fiber, for example, this is only one of the hundreds of things that we need to learn. Just taking fiber alone will make you keep the weight off, because fiber is a food that feeds around about 7 bacteria. Those 7 bacteria that are responsible for GLP-1 production are Lactobacillus gastrici, Lactobacillus rhodoi, Faecalibacterium prausnitzii, Eubacterium, Roseburium. All right. So at least those 5 are the ones that produce and responsible for the stimulation of GLP-1, 5 bacteria. So don't go out there buying probiotics on the shelf at Whole Foods and all that, because they're not going to do you any good if they don't contain those 5 things. If you're taking probiotics for that reason. Now, the probiotics for every reason. If you got a mood problem, if you got a sleep problem, there are certain bacteria you want to look for. But you don't know what those are. So you think the more bacteria on that bottle, oh, this has a lot of stuff in it. This must be good. $55, probably worth it. No, it's not. It's junk. You got to know what it is that those bacteria are supposed to be doing. They all have their role. They all have their lane. The ones that we want are the ones, the GLP-1. I can tell you the ones, if you got mood problems, if you got depression problems, I can tell you the ones that'll increase your mood. If you got sleep problems, if you got those problems, I can tell you the bacteria that improve your sleep. But just going out there because it's on the shelf and you've heard some YouTube video that says, oh, this probiotics is the thing to do, and just buying them arbitrarily, you're wasting your money. Don't do it. I'll tell you the ones. I put it in my yogurt all the time for that stimulates the GLP-1. I can tell you what those are. Those are the 5 ones that I can think of on the top of my head. Icomycin is another one. But anyway, I digress. All right. So fiber is the food for those bacteria that convert to the products that stimulate GLP-1. Full stop. Number 2, fiber is a transport mechanism. It transports bile salts. Ooh, I'm getting too technical, right? It transports bile salts, which bile salts cause an increased production of GLP-1. So if we want more GLP-1, close to what, not even close to what the pharmaceutical guys are producing, but even more, like I showed you on that slide, more so than the normal insulin sensitive patient, then you take in more fiber because you're going to take in more bile salts, because 95% of the bile salts that we take in are reabsorbed in the small bowel, and our colon never sees it. Where our greatest density of L cells are in the right colon. And if we get those bile salts to the right colon, and we prevent those bile salts from getting reabsorbed and going back to the liver, if we can prevent that and get more bile salts to the right colon, we get more GLP-1. How do we do that? How do we keep the bile salts from getting reabsorbed and not being very useful to us until we take in fiber? Because fiber holds on to those bile salts, puts them into the colon, and then you have more volume of GLP-1 produced. Probably didn't know that, did you? All right. So fibers are food for the good bacteria that produces GLP-1. Fiber is also the transport for the bile to produce more volume of GLP-1. Okay. So when I tell you for the first 3 months that we've got to take in protein, fiber, and healthy fats, and you say, well, I'm going to skip the fiber because I'm not constipated. No. Never skip the fiber. And I can have a whole nother lecture on the amount of protein. As a matter of fact, let me ask you that now. Now that you know that the amount of fiber you're supposed to take in is 25 to 40 grams of fiber, how much protein are you supposed to take in every day? And so by that same comparison, I got pretty much all muscle mass I need. I don't need more muscle mass. Yeah, you do. But that's not even what it's for. When I tell you to take in the protein, that's not what it's for. But because there are trillions of enzymatic reactions that go into the body in order to survive, from the mitochondria to the regular cell, there are trillions of proteins we have to have. Hemoglobin is a protein. Albumin that transports proteins in our body is a protein. The hormones that make us happy, dopamine, they come from not protein source, but they come from amino acids, tryptophan, tyrosine. Our norepinephrine, epinephrine, our GABA, the communications from our brain signals require tyrosine. All right. So we've got to have protein. So the protein I'm asking you to take in and the amount are primarily to supply all the enzymatic reactions. Then we got to replace all our gut. Then we got to make it neurotransmitters. Then we got to make repair of organs. We've got to do a lot, even before we come to the muscle. So the muscle is the last place that we put our protein. But when we need protein, is the first place that it takes it away. Because the muscle, yeah, it's important to have for our metabolism and all that. But if we're on an island and we don't have any food or any protein sources, then our body's going to use our muscle to to feed us. And that's why you see people on islands and they're all skinny. What was the name of that movie where the guy was talking to the volleyball? I forget his name. Tom Hanks talking to the volleyball. What's the name of that movie? You all know. So I'm asking in the chat. Anybody put it in there? 100 to 120 grams per day. Is that right? It is. But in your particular case, how much is it? Castaway. Thank you very much. Castaway. Yeah. So the the amount of protein you're taking is just as important as the amount of fiber you take in, because nobody here, I don't think, and I'm talking to my folks here, nobody here, because you're supposed to take about 0.75 to 1 gram per pound, just in order, 0.75 in the lower end, just to handle your enzymatic structures, your neurotransmitters, make your mood hormones or your other hormones, um, to make what else? But I'm getting to the point is that eventually you'll come down to connective tissue, which is your hair, your nails, and your skin, because that's what we're concerned about. We're mostly concerned about what we can see. But that priority of the hair, skin, and nails is just before muscle. It's down on the list. It's like number 9, number 10 down on the list. The neurotransmitters, the enzymes, because you don't have neurotransmitters, you don't have the brain in order to even know what to do. If you don't have the brain power to think and you're not getting proper neurotransmitters, you won't even have the knowledge to say, I need something to eat. You'll just starve to death. So neurotransmitters, enzymes, liver repair, blood proteins, our immune system is huge uses of protein. So our hair, the things they were concerned about, people always say, I didn't want that gastric bypass because I'm going to lose my hair. My next door neighbor had it. She lost her hair. You got to take the protein. The protein is the principal thing. And the keratin and the collagen are all principal factors preserving the hair. But you got to take the appropriate amount because, like I said, protein, I mean, and keratin and all that for your skin is number 8 and 9 on the list. So it's taking care of all those other things first. So if you're only taking in half the amount of protein that you need, you're never going to get to your hair. You're never going to get to your muscles, right? It's going to all go to all those vital things that make you live first. So it's imperative that you take in the proper amount of protein. Otherwise, you won't have the muscle. You don't have the muscle, you'll slow the metabolism down, and that'll start another vicious cycle. Our muscle is our biggest metabolic engine. And if we don't get to number 9 or 10 on that scale of priorities, if we don't take in enough protein, because we've got the 1 gram per day allows us to take care of all 9 categories, from enzymes, neurotransmitters, organ repair, gut, immune systems. All those things get taken care of. And then the icing on top of the cake is that our connective tissue, our hair, our skin, our nails, and our muscles are always getting their protein if we take a gram in per pound of ideal body weight. So I just told you the answer. A gram per ideal pound of 0.75, just to get the minimal amount, to a gram if you want the optimal amount per pound of ideal body weight. So if you weigh 250 pounds now, don't take in 250 grams, because 250 pounds is not your ideal body weight. Your ideal body weight may be 130, 140. So yeah, you'll need, for optimal, you need to take in 130 or 140 grams of protein, minimum. What I would be willing to say here is that the majority of the people on this call, unless you've been here before and you've heard this thing before, majority of you don't get 130 or 140 grams a day. Not many of you get over 100 grams a day. And I say this with all sincerity because this is so important, what I'm about to say, especially for those of you who've had bariatric surgery or are getting ready to have bariatric surgery. There is no way, once I make that pouch the size of a golf ball, once I make that pouch the size of a small banana, for you to get over 120 grams of protein a day by food alone. Think about it. You take 2 eggs in, you're going to feel full. 2 eggs and bacon, you're going to really feel full. 2 eggs and bacon, avocado, some people just can't do that after the surgery because they made the pouch so small so you can go get your energy from your fat. But your fat is an energy source. It's an electrical source. It's a generator. It provides nothing as far as nutrients. Let me say that again. Your energy source, the number of calories you need that we're getting from fat to burn the fat to get rid of the fat, causes inflammation and all that. That's one system. But we've got to have nutrients. All right. And we're not going to get the nutrients from the fat. We've got to get the nutrients from the food that we're taking in. The amount of protein that we got to take in is over 100 grams universally. Because that means that everybody on this call weighs at least 100 pounds, right? Am I right? I hope so. So, because that means, okay, fine, in order for you to get the optimal amount of protein, is that by definition, if you weigh over 100 pounds, you got to take in at least 100 grams of protein. And I'd be willing to bet not a lot of people on this call, like I said before, unless you've been here before, take in over 100 grams, especially if you've had the surgery. Because you think about 45 grams from bacon and eggs, scrambled eggs and bacon, that's about 40 grams of a protein meal. Then you're going to eat another meal at dinner time. That's about another 40 grams. So you're getting 80 grams at best. And you need 150 grams. So my point being is you've got to supplement with protein shakes. I don't sell protein. Well, we do sell them at the office, but I just put them in the cabinet there. You can get any protein shake that you want, but it has to be whey protein shakes, whey protein isolate shakes. Get them at the store, get them, go Amazon, go buy you some whey protein isolate, and make sure that it has at least 3 grams of leucine. Leucine is that amino acid that starts the mTOR process. Let's not get too technical about it. Just do it. All right. Whey protein shakes with leucine. Get another type of protein powder that's called casein. Casein protein. That casein you're going to take later at night, an hour before you go to bed. Because when is your growth hormone turn on? When is your melatonin? All those things that causes your body to grow turn on at night. From your pituitary gland, you release growth hormone at night. But if you don't have the protein available for the growth hormone to work on your muscles, that's where you repair muscles, and so you build muscles back up. If you don't have the protein, then it's not going to do any good. You're going to have high levels of growth hormone, and it's going to say, hey, there's nothing for me to work on. Let me go to bed too. So you're going to take casein protein because casein takes a lot longer to break down. It has more fat in it, more lactose in it, and all that. Some people can't take it, but you're going to take your casein protein. This is all coming out in the book later on. You'll be able to see it. So, where was I? How many grams of protein you take in? One person told me 100 and 120 grams. Correct. But it has to be greater than 100 unless you only weigh 100 pounds. All right. How much do you weigh? How much do you want to weigh? How much is your ideal body weight? If it's 150, you need to be taking in 150 grams of protein. All right. All right. So are you saying 0.75 to 1 gram of your current weight to your goal weight? No. So I'm saying it's 0.75 to 1 gram for your ideal body weight. You can look that up on Google. What's my ideal body weight at 5'2"? What's my ideal body? My ideal body weight at my height, 5'10", is around about 165 to 175. So I always take the latter part of that number because I'd look like I was on crack if I was weighing 165, 160. But today I weigh 172, which is my ideal body weight. So I need 172 grams of protein today. I'm going to take my protein in the form of a couple of scoops of my protein shake because I can't even get it in. And the irony of this whole thing is that it's protein. So once you take in protein by food or by protein shakes, you're not hungry for a while, which is kind of what we want you to have. We want you to have that hunger. So you just take it a small amount so you can go tap into your fat stores. But at the same time, you got to take in enough protein. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. So the only way you can do it, you definitely cannot take enough protein by food if you've had surgery. So you got to take at least 2 protein shakes a day. Okay. All right. We'll leave that there. I stayed on that slide for a long time. Anyway, it's the whole concept that I was teaching yesterday was about bile and butyrate, how I want to get GLP-1 activated. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up here. I'm going to give you the bottom line. The bottom line is that we need decreased amount of food that we're taking in. We then need the increased amounts, as much GLP-1 as we can get. All right. So the patients that I have around the world and the patients that I have that are in my own personal practice have regained the weight for one reason. They turn the GLP-1 off. And it's called dysbiosis. I went to one for. So dysbiosis reduces GLP-1. Now, what is dysbiosis? So it's all related to that microbiome, and something that nobody talks to you about. Everybody talks to you about more calories in versus calories out. Everybody talks to you about doing exercise and walking. Nobody talks to you about the core reason we lose weight or lose fat and keep it off. It's our microbiome in our colon and our small bowel, the thing that I started this whole talk off with. And it's a reason, because we've known this stuff for the past 20 years, but it's beginning to be more and more studied, and we're finding out things like we did 60 years ago, that the gastric bypass doesn't work because of malabsorption. It's working because we're stimulating certain cells that make these enteroendocrine cells work. Now we're finding out that ain't even the bottom line. But these endocrine cells are making GLP-1, cool, but who's doing the work? Who's doing the heavy lifting? Our bacteria. So dysbiosis means that, well, let's take it the positive way around. What does a healthy bacteria in our colon look like? They have a proper place to stay, a comfortable place to stay, and they're being fed. All right. So all these slides just kind of go through all that: proper place to stay and they're being fed. Only two things. All right. So what happens when we don't feed them? So you have starving mycobacteria, they hadn't been fed. What are they fed on? They're fed on fiber. Full stop. They get fed on some protein too. They don't like protein. They don't refined carbohydrates. They definitely can't handle. The healthy carbohydrates they can, but the healthy component of carbohydrates is almost always the fibers component. Okay, so they're looking for fiber. You keep them happy with fiber, they're gonna flourish and they're gonna play volleyball, and it's gonna be a whole happy day. But you also got to keep their house clean too. You got to keep their house in order. And that's the problem with these seed oils, is that the seed oils put the house on fire. It causes the house to be inflamed. The first thing the seed oils do, the seed oils result in the cookies, the crackers, the pizza, the pasta, all have seed oils in it. I'm going to show you a list. That list, the first list I show you was part of it. I'm going to show you the second list now, which is the same foods. But 4-hydroxynonenols, that thing called 4-HNE, is called 4-hydroxynonenal. Those are the metabolic byproducts of the seed oils. The metabolic byproducts of the seed oils poison what we call the tight junction of our epithelial cells in our bowel. Our bowel have bacteria on the inside and have our vessels and our soft tissues and everything connective tissue on the outside. So our blood vessels, I'm sorry, the bowel contains bacteria on the inside and then the vessels and the connective tissue on the outside. Bacteria like to stay in this lane. It's like a nice, comfortable, cozy, velvety coat of of colon lining. All right. But it makes sure that none of that bacteria gets out into the tissues or the bloodstream by these tight junctions. These tight junctions are held together by grout or glue. Okay. That grout or glue is called zonulin. It's the zonulin right here. 4-HNE, this is a little key that kind of locks it in place. Zonulin including one. 4-HNE, 4-hydroxynonenols, along with some other 9-hydroxy and 13-hydroxy octadecadenoic acid, which are the other metabolites from seed oils, actually mess around with that key. It says, hey, key, how you doing? It turns it, and that key then loosens this bond up. So instead of having this, you have this. You can see through there, right? So if you can see through there, bacteria gets through there. Bacteria then gets into the system and you get inflammation. You get release of all of these cytokines, things that harm other cells. You get release of these cytokines and you get systemic inflammation along with local inflammation. You make the house of that bacteria inflamed. So you're starving bacteria and you get them into a crappy household. So that's what dysbiosis is. Okay. So, and those bacteria, those healthy bacteria aren't going to live long. Those 5 bacteria that I talked to you about, fecal bacterium prosnacea, the U bacterium, the Roseburia, the Lactobacillus reuteri, the Akkermansia mucinophili, all those things you need to make that GLP-1 and say, you didn't feed me and you give me a poor place to stay. No, I can't do nothing for you. It's not going to make the short chain fatty acids, the butyrate and the things that we need. All right. So barrier dysfunction and endotoxin influx because of the seed oils are causing, this problem. So this is a diagram, and my slides are going crazy, where the bacteria are happy, healthy. This is microscopy, a fluorescent microscopy of a rat colon, where they would have been fed fiber, protein and fiber. They were fed protein and fiber. And basically you see a lot of beaming healthy microbacteria, a healthy layer of mucus, and this is the colon wall. So this, and you have nice tight junctions, and you can't see the tight junctions. They're like little pieces of tile with grout, okay? Then you get another rat that they fed on the same, at the same time, a Western diet, hot dogs, pizza, stuff like that. And what you find out is you're gonna get this. Here's the healthy fiber, and this is the rat. It's kind of funny. But then you get bad bacteria. They're no longer diverse. We all know that diversity is good, despite what the current administration says. But anyway, diversity is good. And basically, now you only have 1 or 2 types of bacteria. They're the bad type of E. coli. They're the bad type of Clostridium. They're the bad type of things that if they get into the bloodstream, you are sick. You're in the ICU. And what they do is they say, oh, okay, fine, I'm going to eat everything in sight. They even eat the mucus barrier that's supposed to protect the colon. Once they eat through that mucus barrier, they're going to get into that colon. They don't get into your system. They're going to get into that area and they're going to separate that tight junction and they're going to cause you to get inflamed. And we can measure that because that's what's going on right now in a lot of you. We can measure that. We can take your 2-metacrosis factor alpha. We can see that. We can take your C-reactive protein. We can see that. We can take your homocysteine. We can see that. We can take these levels and tell you you're inflamed. And you're probably inflamed because you're taking in seed oils that lead to this cascade of events. All right. Hope this is. So what are the seed oils? All right. We want to look for these things, these words on the package. Number 1, consumption of seed oil that you want to look for is soybean oil. That's almost in everything. Canola oil. Canola oil is a monounsaturated fatty acid. It contains a certain percentage of linoleic acid, which is the seed oil we're talking about. But it contains 20 to 25%, whereas soybean oil contains about 65 to 70%. And that linoleic acid is where the term oxalams come from. Ox means oxidized. Lam, LAM, means linoleic acid metabolites. And that's that 4-HNE. Those things, as we showed before, those things unlock the flora, and they also mess with our mitochondria. So they're bad boys. So you're gonna say, well, where do we get them from? All right, so but you get them from all these things that are in your cabinet. Look at your cabinet. Look at your. Take an example. Get a bottle of salad dressing. Get a bottle of ketchup. See what's on the side. So, it probably has soybean oil in it. Corn oil, cottonseed oil is another one. Very common. Sunflower and safflower oil. So hang with me. I'm going to show you, because this is going to be a little shorter, hopefully. What we want to use instead is avocado oil, olive oil, butter, ghee, tallow, or even coconut oil. We poo-poo these things back in the 1920s because they thought that they could come out with something better. They came out with these seed oils. They said, oh, this is cheaper and more effective and cleaner and healthier than these things. Not true. They sold us the okey doke. How'd they do that? All right, so these are the foods in the seed oil, seed oils. We got soybean oil in commercial salad dressings, like I said, sunflower oil in potato chips and cottonseed oil, margarine, packaged snackers and pretzels, soybean oil. You can see soybean oil is in the majority of all of these things as we go down the list. Popcorn oil, my favorite, going to the movies, you got to hang away from it. Do you have to hang away from it forever? We'll talk about that in just 1 second. Frozen meals, soybean oil. Non-dairy creamers, somebody mentioned that this morning? Okay. Say what type of leucine? Leucine. Say what type of leucine? Leucine. 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 Okay. Oxidized leucine. Acid metabolites. Okay. Granola bars, soybean oil. So you can see it's mostly soybean oil, even in the chicken McNuggets that we thought were healthy. Soybean oil, soybean oil. So we're getting a lot of pizza, soybean oil, canned soup, sauces. All this soybean oil is our #1 culprit. All right. So how do we get these things? I'm going to quickly go through here because this shows you how much leucine, when I say polyunsaturated fatty acid, I'm talking about leucine, Leucine. So 61% is too much. Too much. We gotta have that leucine because it's an essential fatty acid, meaning that our body doesn't make it, we gotta take it into our diet. But the problem is that we're taking 61% when we only should be taking in 1%. Okay? So I'm going to show you what we're doing and why we're doing it and what the key points are. Key points that soybean oil is in everything. We want to stay away from these things. It damages our mitochondria. It makes them look like this. But importantly, this is where the seed oils came in. And this is what I want you to kind of take home. This is something that you really, really didn't know, but you need to. Before 1911, you look back at your old grandmothers and great-grandmothers. Look at their pictures. Were they obese back then? Obesity wasn't known a whole lot. Yes, there was some, but not a whole lot. The average intake of seed oils was approximately 2 grams per day. But we didn't get them from the cookies, the crackers, the cheesecakes, the pizzas. We didn't get it from that. We got it from animal fats, lard, butter, beef, and tallow. But then the World War came along, and so there became a deficiency in animals, and the animals were pricey to get the lard, the butter, and the beef tallow out of them. It was pricey. So everybody couldn't afford that. So they said, what can we do? I'm going to show you what they did, and it's kind of weird. So they said, okay, fine. In the early 1900s, the Industrial Revolution came about, and we had corn oil. But what did we do after we got the corn? Well, we had a bunch of seeds that were waste products, and we didn't have anything to do with them. More so, let's see, more so is our problem. We can go to the next slide. This is corn. So after we got the corn, then we had all this stuff right here. It was waste, and they burned it. They filled it in landfills. They tried to get rid of it some kind of way, but it kept growing and growing and growing. And the problem became, what do we do with this stuff? We just can't keep finding landfills to fill it up. And even more, it was cotton with the cotton seeds. You go, the slaves would go and pick the cotton and basically go to the cotton mill, give the cotton fiber. And then basically you'd have these stories of cotton seeds left over. That's a lot of cotton picking, right? So anyway, there are stories and stories of these cotton seeds, and it became a difficult problem. This was trash. This was waste. This was waste. And they had a problem with getting rid of it. So they got their minds and said, what can we do with this stuff? How can we make some money off of this? So they found a way to hydrolyze it, and they can make it into other products. So they would take this waste of seeds and they would make it into other things like soap. So before food use, seed oils, especially cottonseed, were considered waste. Then they started being used as soap, candles, lubricants, and light oils and lamp oil. Ivory soap. I don't know if you all have ivory soap, but that came back in the 1900s from seeds. All right. So let me show you something Then we eventually got in 1911, they said, what else can we do with this stuff? We first thought, okay, fine. Can we eat it? And so to me, that was sort of like taking seed oils that were first used in the industrialized world to make machinery lubricant, to make candles, to make soap. We said, can we eat it? I wonder. Who thought of that? But again, this was the industry. And I said, yeah, we can probably eat it. So it's like turning WD-40 into cooking spray, WD cooking spray. Would you do it? But that's what we're doing every single day. These seed oils were initially not meant for consumption. They're definitely not meant for health. So they were meant to make fertilizer. They were meant, and this was in order to make them where they didn't have to bury them, burn them, and put them in landfills and contaminate the environment. So they were able to mechanically and biochemically turn them into something that was useful. It was useful for fertilizer. It was useful for insecticides. It was useful for machinery lubricants, and it was useful for lamp oils. All right. So that says over there. So then they started making Crisco. Seed oils were cheaper than animal fats. They says, okay, it's cheaper than animal fats. We just made it. We made it. But how do they make it edible? How do they make that WD-40 edible? Well, you can see with every can you add those seed oils, you bleach it because you don't make it brown, black, and cruddy. You bleach it first, then you put some sweeteners in it, then you put some dyes in it, then you put some other chemicals in it that makes it tasty. So you're taking 10W40, you're taking 10 that weight 30 motor oil, you're bleaching it, sweetening it, and then you're putting it in your mouth every day. All right. Then back in those days, the cardiologists had their hands greased with money, and so Procter and Gamble went to them and said, "Hey, if you make this stuff sound healthy, we'll give you a pretty good amount of money for that." So they had endorsements by the American Heart Association because Crisco was seen as pure, as whiter, as more healthy for you when it wasn't. But they made that narrative so people would buy it. And back then, it was on TV, it was on radio. We believed it. Okay. So the problem is that, yeah, we need fatty acids. We need them, beef. We need beef tallow. We need lard. We need ghee. We need that stuff. We don't need the pretzels. We don't need the cookies. We don't need the crackers. Don't need the spaghetti. We don't need all the stuff the other stuff that has in. We only need 2 grams a day. Back before Procter and Gamble got a hold of the patents and all this stuff, we were taking in 2 grams a day. We were living pretty healthily, other than the other exterior forces, infections and things like that, tuberculosis and whatever. We were living pretty healthily. All right. Now we're taking in 82 grams a day, 40 times the amount that we need to be taking in. That's the problem. The unintended consequences are inflammation, obesity, and metabolic disorders. Okay. So generations raised on Crisco and similar seed oils. My mama raised me on Crisco. We had gradual shift away from ancestral diets, which are just the basic whole foods. And we have a direct correlation with the rise in obesity and the metabolic state. All right. So basically, seed oils were never introduced as a healthy food. They were driven by industrial profit motives and waste reuse. Had to find something to do with it. And to me, it was okay to make oil, to make candles, to make soap, to make detergent. It was okay. Stay in your lane. But then to make that stuff edible, kind of overstepped it a little bit. Okay. But they made a multi-billion-dollar industry. So our total vegetable oil consumption back in the 1900s or 1800s, late 1800s, went from 2 grams a day up to 80 grams a day in 145 years. Okay. So this is the rest of the stuff that I taught the docs yesterday, bile and butyrate. We want to get it out there. And so it's pretty much all so in the same thing. So what causes the weight regain after surgery? We begin to turn off the GLP-1. We destroy the household area of the bacteria that makes the GLP-1. All right, because if we're eating crackers, cookies, refined carbohydrates, bread, pasta, we're eating that, we don't have enough room for the fiber. We don't have enough room for the protein, right? Because the carbohydrates, we eat it all day long and it makes us full. We don't eat the right foods. We got to cut down on the refined carbohydrates in order to make room, especially after bariatric surgery, in order to make room for the protein and the fiber. But we're doing the opposite. So when we do that opposite, we make a dysbiotic, an inflamed household with starving bacteria. Because number one, it needs fiber. It needs fiber. We're not giving it fiber. So you just turned off your mechanism for making GLP-1. So your GLP-1 levels are low. Just like all of my patients, GLP-1 levels are low before surgery. I don't check everybody's because we don't do the research of tapping into the portal vein and checking your GLP-1 levels. But the studies that have done that show clearly that your GLP-1 levels before surgery are markedly down. And the studies have also shown that your GLP-1 levels, once you regain the weight, are markedly going down. Why? Because post-op, from the time that you're in your clinical diet to the first 3 months, you're doing what you're told. You're eating protein, fiber, and carbohydrates. My bad. Protein, fiber, and healthy fats. Protein, fiber, and healthy fats. And you're basically pulling all this orchestration together. Because why are we doing healthy fats, Doc? Why are we eating this avocado, olive oil, and all? Because you're giving that gallbladder a good contraction. And that fiber is then taken all the way down to that colon, and more bacteria are healthy because they have the fiber. But better yet, there are more bile salts that are coming from the gallbladder that are pushing the secondary bile salts to that colon that activate the GLP-1. I know you didn't understand that, but sounded good to me. All right. But anyway, so what happens is that you go back to the refined carbohydrates and refined foods, and you don't get full, so you eat more frequently. And guess what, guys? When I make that small pouch, that tissue is not made of steel. It's not made of aluminum. It's not made of any sort of metal. It's made of connective tissue. And as you know, connective tissue can stretch. So that stomach stretches. So when you're taking those carbohydrates and you're taking in a greater quantity of food, it stretches the pouch. Once you stretch the pouch, then you're going down the rabbit hole. You get into a vicious cycle. The pouch is bigger. It can hold more. So you try to fill it up. You try to satisfy, because the stretch receptors are all that's left to let you know that it's full. When those stretch receptors don't stretch, and it has the capacity to stretch, you're not feeling full. There's a physiologic feedback to your nervous system that says you hadn't stretched the pouch enough, so you're not full. So you eat more. And you eat more, you stretch it more. And you're going down that rabbit hole, okay? So when you eat more and you stretch more, and then you lose the weight that you're going to lose is basically muscle mass, you slow down your basal metabolic rate. And with the seed oils destroying the mitochondria, you also slow down your basal metabolic rate. Your basal metabolic rate for muscle is your number one power engine to increase your metabolism. You decreased it, and so you're going to stop burning the fat that you got. I'll start regaining it. And more importantly, more problematic is the cravings are going to come back. So the stuff that you were able to stay away from, the cookies, the crackers, the rice, all those things that, yeah, I just didn't, you didn't have that need for anymore because your GLP-1 blocked your pleasure receptors for those foods. That GLP-1 now is low, and your cravings for those foods pulls out the roof. You got to have some candy. You got to have some sweet. You got to have something crunchy in your mouth. Whereas before, GLP-1 blocked that. Okay. So clinical consequences of GLP-1 suppression leads to reduced satiety, lower BMR, meaning that the fat and your muscle is going to sit there, increased cravings, contributes to post-surgical regain. All right. So not all patients will do what they're supposed to do, but when you do, like some of my good patients do, good things happen. This is a beautiful person, beautiful doctor, did all the right things, came back. She had the knowledge, so she didn't have to come back as often. But she had the knowledge that I'm giving you. And she turned and she sent me this thing and said, look at what I got. I said, what is that? Well, you know what it is, right? Guess what? She turned on to this person, eating protein, fiber, and healthy fats. Protein, fiber, and healthy fats. Protein, fiber, and healthy fats. So you get rid of the knee problems, you get rid of the diabetes, you get rid of the hypertension, you get rid of the sleep apnea, you get rid of all of the issues that you're having, primarily because you're sticking to that mantra: protein, fiber, and healthy fats. All right. So these foods we're going to stay away from, right? Those 20 things. Cut them out. Take them out of your cabinet. Take them out. Subtract before you add. Now that we subtracted, what are we going to take in now? We're going to take in these foods. So I told you before that we only want you to eat 2 meals a day, especially after surgery, because we got to have this fasting. And so each one of these other topics that I mentioned in our whole lectures on their own. But this is the bottom line. These are the 2 meals you're going to have every day. And this is just a first 10-day sample. You can mix and match them and do whatever you want to. But day 1, brunch, vegetable omelet, smoked salmon in the evening. Okay. Eggs Benedict next day, buttermilk chicken in the evening. But this is protein and fiber, protein and fiber, protein and fiber, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So then you go to your next day, day 6, scrambled eggs and bacon, steak with asparagus for dinner, bacon and eggs. So I'm going to give you, in the book, is going to have these all for 30 days. And then the next 30 days, you can kind of mix them up. But these are good foods. These are tasteful. And once you stay on these foods for a good 3 months, those cravings go away because your GLP-1 goes up. Those cravings go away. And so if somebody offers you some ice cream and cake, you say, oh, this is nice to celebrate. You go ahead and celebrate for me. I'm good. But right now, when you're taking in the carbohydrates on the side and all that kind of stuff, and just a little bit, which is the most common comment that I get, Doc, I only took a little bit. I only took in 1 cracker. I only took in a bite of that pizza. Again, another lecture, because the half-life of that bite of that pizza is 680 days. You just took a bite that's going to add to your problem for almost 2 years. So yeah, do I tell people, do you have to stay away from it? Yeah, you got to heal first. You got to heal your body first, because your body's inflamed, your body's sick, your body's got to heal. So, I mean, just like an alcoholic, an alcoholic who's been on 5 years of sobriety, you can say to them, well, now you've done it for 5 years, you've been without alcohol. You can probably have a little glass of wine. It doesn't work that way. They have that little glass of wine, then they start down the disease process of alcoholism again. But the good news is, unlike that scenario, unlike a smoker or an alcoholic that can't ever have a cigarette or can't ever have a glass of wine or alcohol, this is different. Yeah, you will be able to take some spaghetti in the future, but you can't take it while you're healing, because it takes 680 days to get half of it out of your system. So it's going to take 3 or 4 years to get all of it out of your system. So give me the time, and give yourself the time to get it out of your system first before you start nibbling at it again. And people say, Doc, that is going to be so hard. No, I disagree. It is not going to be so hard. Why? Because your hormones, your biological things are taking over. To show you how strong biology is, you guys do this exercise with me right now. Hold your breath for 10 minutes without taking the breath. You can't. Why? Because the CO2 buildup is going back to your respiratory system, making you breathe. You'll either pass out, and you pass out, you're going to start automatically breathing, but you will breathe because you can't fight biology. Okay. So when you take in the right types of foods, your GLP-1 levels are going to go up, your ghrelin levels are going to go down. That biology is going to kick in place. You can't fight biology. You are not going to have those cravings. You're just not. I don't have cravings. I used to have cheesecake and apple pie and ice cream every weekend because I was celebrating. I did a hard week, and so I had me some dessert. I go to the movie and I had me some popcorn. I can go to the movie now without having popcorn. I basically go every weekend without having dessert. That was something that I thought was impossible. But my biology has proven me wrong. My biology says, nope, I'm more powerful than your willpower. So it doesn't necessarily just take willpower. You just give it enough time. You give it the first 3, 4, 5 months doing it, and your biology takes over, and it becomes very, very easy. So I argue with people all the time about this is hard. Yeah, you got to start with willpower, But we do that for you because if you're closely coming back for us after surgery, we're going to make sure that that's all you're taking in is protein, fiber, and healthy fat. If you tell me you're taking in some cereal or some pancakes, I'll slap you on the wrist. Not literally, but I'll tell you, no, 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 let's not mess it up. And I'll give you all these reasons and these methodologies of how we're messing it up. We don't want to go down that pathway. We'll be sorry. All right. So anyway, for those of you who are here who've had the surgery before and who are here for revision surgery, this is good learning for you. Now, what we're going to provide for you is a reset. We're going to go tighten some things, and we're going to deliver that bile further down to your G cells, your L cells where you're producing GLP-1. We're going to reset, but you can certainly unravel it again by continuing to eat cereals and pastas and crackers and rice and pancakes. You can certainly unravel it again. So this whole lesson series is basically something for you to come back to get the coaching and also to get them understanding and making sure that you're aware because you don't know what you don't know. So I'm thinking that maybe 50% of the stuff that I gave you today, you probably didn't know. And so now you're in the kindergarten. Now you got to go to the 12th grade. It's going to take some time to get there. Don't try to rush it. You may be a genius, but maybe this is maybe a nice little online course for you. But stick the course, okay? All right. So I'm changing the name of the webinar to Under the Hood because I'm going to do more of the teaching like this every single week. We're going to talk about a different subject, maybe cholesterol, maybe gallbladder, maybe high blood pressure, maybe PCOS. We're going to talk about the different things and how the central core of this message always comes back to what it is that we're putting in our mouth. We're going to be talking about more commonly exercise and the timing of exercise and the timing of when to eat, because that is the third pillar, but it's not as important as the first two pillars. But those first two pillars don't stand on their own without that third pillar. You can balance it for a little while, but if you don't do it timing right, in other words, if you take that casein protein, if you take it in the daytime, it doesn't do you a whole lot of good. You take it just before the nighttime, when you're basically getting ready to turn on your growth hormone and your body's getting ready to recover, that's the proper time to take it in. Timing is important. So we're going to be talking about that, the three pillars, okay? All right. I'm over my limit. I really appreciate you guys hanging in there with me. I think that this was a good start, and I hope that you guys hang in there with me for a long period of time. And so I'm going to go ahead and let you go, and we'll see you back next week, right? Right? All right. Enjoy your weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.